Happy belated birthday, America. How you doing? I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott, and this is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, I don't know about you guys. I had a lovely Independence Day weekend. We did so very, very little, which is just a great way to celebrate all the hard work done by the generations before us to get us to this point. But then I look at that Joker in the White House and wonder how much longer are we going to have it? So I thought with Independence Day coinciding almost with the 6-month anniversary of the Biden administration that we would take a look at how he is doing. Bill, just I don't really have a laser-like focus on this topic like I usually do. What I would rather get from
you and Joe Biden.
That's right. Oh, God, he can't even work off a prompter. This is just sad. So, Bill, just give me your general sense of where this administration is, maybe where the president is, and where we are as a country right now.
Well, having done 6 months of snark on the issue, I think that probably deserves a serious answer. So let's take my personal opinions of Joe Biden and how he got into office out of the question. Just look at the state of the country. I think the one thing that strikes me the most is that everything that has changed, intentionally changed, has been intentionally changed to the detriment of America. That's the one thing these things seem to have in common. And not just to the detriment of America, but really to the detriment of peace and society. So let's just take a few examples. When Donald Trump was president, the border was more or less under the control. More or less, it was clear that he was building a border. It was clear that we were finally getting serious about immigration. And those numbers had dropped to levels we hadn't seen in 15, 20 years. Once Joe Biden was inaugurated, we saw an immediate rush to the border because it was clear from the policies of the Democrats that not only were you going to be permitted to enter the country, we would be expecting large numbers of you when we have your voter registration. Well, I almost said we have them ready at the border, but voter registration is such an old-fashioned and racist idea. So we have a border crisis that we didn't have. All of the, I think on his first day in office, he basically issued executive orders canceling pipelines that kept energy costs low in America. And to me, from a strategic point of view, trying to take the long view occasionally, not just cheaper, but domestic, meaning protected, meaning not vulnerable to outside forces. Once you start shutting down domestic production, you not only raise prices, but you increase the amount of leverage that players like Iran and Russia and all the rest of these oil exporters have. That's not to the country's benefit. There's constant talk about, connected to this, about how we're going to use infinitely more expensive technologies in the so-called Green New Deal to eliminate a problem that has yet to be really conclusively proven to be a problem. Certainly the people that own beachfront property still own it. And so there's that. Overseas, we decided to reestablish our relationship with the country that is most at war with us and has been since 1979 at the expense of our greatest ally in the Middle East since 1948. I don't think that's a step forward for the country, and put aside America's interest in this. It's a step backward for the Middle East. If you're 100% on the side of the Palestinians, it is a catastrophe for the Palestinians that this has happened. Donald Trump produced not only peace and security in the Middle East, but he was on the verge of having 7 or 8 peace treaties signed with nations been at war for over a century, half a century. So that's not any better. The military preparedness is being cut, both financially, which is disturbing, but much, much, much more importantly, it's being undercut morally and ethically. The entire ethos of the military as a collection of patriotic warriors is under direct assault. That doesn't do us any good. And I can go on and on, Steve, but to be honest with you, I'm not aware of anything that's happened in the last 6 months. And if somebody can correct me on this, I'd be happy to acknowledge it. But I honestly cannot think of anything in the last 6 months that has put this country in a better position than it was prior to that event.
Yeah, the two that are really related that I've written about for PJ Media is the Middle East, that by attacking domestic energy production, Biden is making us more dependent on the Middle East again, while at the same time making the Middle East less stable than it was under Trump.
And pumping money into unreliable actors, into bad actors.
Yeah, it's just a terrible combination. And Scott, the reason I went to Bill first is I knew he was going to give us this fabulous rundown of all the awful things. And I saved you for second because I was hoping, don't let me down here, that you'd give us a little hope or a little inspiration or a little less of everything that those of us who live inside the news cycle deal with every day.
Well, you were right in expecting no fabulosity from me. It's really weird, but the first 6 months of the Biden administration have probably been among my favorite 6-month periods in the last 10 years or so, mostly because I've been largely blissfully unaware of what's going on with the Biden administration. And I think that there are a combination of reasons for that. And I'll tell you how this kind of came to my consciousness is my wife was away for the weekend visiting family, and I had to work, so I was here. And I decided to watch coverage of the 4th of July in Washington, D.C., I thought, well, I'm not going to go sit out in the neighborhood and watch fireworks by myself here. I'll watch it on TV like a decent American. And so CNN had their coverage of it. And during that, early on, President Biden came out of the White House, came up to a podium, and for a brief time enthusiastically addressed the people in front of him that they had gathered there. And I was looking at him thinking, so that's what he looks like. I really have paid so little attention to the White House, and there are a combination of reasons for that. Number one is during the Trump administration, President Trump himself was an attention machine. And so he's thrived on that his entire career, and he likes the spotlight, and he wanted to be in it as much as possible. But the media was also an attention machine, and they realized that Donald Trump was the horse that you should hitch your wagon to because he was going somewhere. And so they poured on the attention to him. So it was nonstop, 24-hour-a-day drama from the White House. And since the Biden administration's inauguration, they have dialed that back on the coverage. Joe Biden himself, nowhere near as interesting a person. And, even if he wanted to try to draw attention to himself, I think he'd have a hard time doing it. And so it's been for me kind of like this island of peace. And frankly, it's allowed me to redirect my attention on personal matters, on improving our lives, my wife and I, and focusing on business and kind of getting my act together and not constantly being caught up in what's going on at some remote control capital 1,500 miles away from here. So I'm not saying this is an endorsement of Joe Biden, but I kind of pine for the days when the president of the United States was not the most important thing in anybody's life.
Yeah, Scott, you reminded me of a line, and I can't remember which history book I read this in, but it was some history, I believe, of the New Deal that said before Roosevelt and the New Deal, the only contact the average citizen had with the federal government was when they went to the post office.
Yeah.
And that was it. I would love to go back to those days. It occurred to me when I was listening to Bill and Scott that we really have two Bidens. Well, three if you count the guy you get after he's put in an hour of work and calls a lid because the sundown effect is kicking in. But we're not going to talk about that. But you have the executive, the head of the executive branch of the government, and that's the guy that he and his team of radicals in the White House are doing all the damage that Bill talked about. They can fill all these vacancies with just the worst progressives that you could ever imagine being in charge of anything. You wouldn't want them in charge of a sandbox, and instead they're putting them in charge of big government programs. You look at the guy pushing critical race theory that's tearing us apart. You look at all of these things, and those are the work of the guy who is the head of the executive branch of the United States federal government. And in that sense, he is everything that I feared he would be during the general election. And sadly, I've been proven right. But then you look at the president of the United States, not the guy who gets to fill all these vacancies and jobs and appointments and whatnot and gets to set foreign policy, that kind of thing. But the guy who's supposed to work with Congress, the guy who's supposed to lead the nation as much as you can lead a nation, like as big and as diverse as this one. That guy is not very good. His honeymoon period consisted of one major piece of legislation, those first 100 days, and that was the stimulus bill that was going to get passed regardless because Congress loves giving away money. And that's about it. This guy, he does not move the nation. He does not even move his own Senate. They've got two major bills stalled there that a guy with 80 million votes somehow isn't popular enough to move through a Senate that's controlled with the deciding vote of his own vice president. So that part gives me a little hope. The fact that the guy who got 80 million votes somehow can't move the needle on Capitol Hill the way presidents with much fewer votes, much less apparent popular support were able to do. So hang in there, America. We've got 3.5 more years of this. I won't even say it. And that is your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.